It was just another regular Wednesday afternoon, one of those forgettable middle of the week days when everything seems routine, the kind where the hours crawl, your mind stays on autopilot, and the world just passes by. I had just finished a few work emails and was considering what to cook for dinner when my husband, Alex, entered the room with an announcement that instantly twisted my world on its axis. He said it so casually, so nonchalantly. "I have to go abroad for a business trip, just for a week." His voice was smooth, calm, reassuring, like he didn't realize the weight those words carried for me. It wasn't the fact that he was leaving. I understood it was for work. I'd always supported his career, through all its busy seasons and long meetings. But this time, something about it felt different. This was the first time in years that I'd be left alone in the house, just me and the silence. Alex packed his bags with the usual efficiency, double-checked his charger, his suits, his passport. We shared a tight embrace before he left. I clung to him for a second longer than usual. He smiled, kissed my forehead, and promised, "I'll call every night." Then, just like that, he was gone. The moment the door clicked shut behind him, an eerie silence blanketed the house. It wasn't just quiet, it was hollow. The kind of silence that made the walls feel like they were pressing in. Every creak of the floorboard echoed too loudly. Everything felt too still, too big, too empty. And despite knowing he'd only be gone for a week, my chest ached with a loneliness I hadn't expected. The first 2 days passed without incident. I kept myself busy with work, cleaned out some drawers I'd been avoiding, watched shows on autopilot, and went for long walks through our quiet neighborhood, just to feel like I was part of something, anything. I told myself I was fine, but deep down, I knew I was just biding time. Then came the third day. It was a cool evening. I had wrapped myself in my favorite throw blanket, the one Alex had given me on our anniversary, and was curled up on the couch with a cup of mint tea steaming in my hands. The sun had dipped behind the horizon, casting the house in dim amber light. Just as I reached for the remote, the doorbell rang. The sound startled me. I wasn't expecting anyone. Who could it be? I approached the door with cautious curiosity and slowly opened it. Standing there, framed by the golden hue of the porch light, was Jake. Jake, Alex's best friend since college. The two were practically inseparable. We'd shared countless dinners and holidays with him, but I had never really spent time alone with Jake. He was always Alex's guy, always in the background of our shared memories, never in the spotlight. He was smiling in that easy, familiar way of his. In one hand, he held up a bottle of red wine. "Hey," he said casually, "I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd drop by. Figured since Alex is out of town, you might appreciate some company." For a second, I hesitated. I wasn't sure how to respond. But then, driven by loneliness, or maybe just the sight of a familiar face, I stepped aside and motioned him in. "You didn't have to do that," I said, trying to sound casual. He shrugged. "Just being a good friend." At that moment, nothing seemed unusual. No red flags, no sirens, just a spontaneous visit from a friend. But hindsight has a way of coloring memories differently. We poured wine and sat on the couch. At first, it was innocent. We talked about mutual friends, work, Alex's trip. But as the evening wore on, our conversation deepened. I found myself laughing, smiling genuinely, something I hadn't done in days. Jake had this rare gift. He listened like he genuinely cared, like every word I said mattered. His eyes were locked in, attentive, and gentle. It was comforting, more comforting than I expected. And soon, the hours slipped away. It wasn't until I noticed the shift in the air between us that I realized something had changed. I caught Jake watching me, not with lust, but with a quiet intensity that made my heart race. His gaze lingered just a beat too long, his smile softening in a way that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I told myself it was nothing. I was imagining it. He was Alex's best friend, and I was Alex's wife. We were both just lonely, maybe a little tipsy. But deep inside, a tiny spark had been lit, and no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, it flickered in the darkness. "It's getting late," I said, standing abruptly to break the moment. "I should get to bed." Jake stood too, his expression unreadable. "Of course. Thanks for letting me stop by. I'll see you around." And with that, he left. But the house felt even emptier than before. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I replayed that moment. His look, the way I felt, the unspoken tension. I was rattled. This wasn't me. I wasn't the type of woman to have thoughts like this, especially not about Jake. I kept trying to blame it on the wine, the loneliness, anything but what it actually was. By morning, I was still swimming in guilt and confusion, and I needed to talk to someone. I called Emma, my best friend, and the one person I could always count on to give it to me straight. "So Jake came over last night," I said, trying to sound nonchalant. Emma's tone immediately sharpened. "Why?" "He just stopped by to check in, brought wine. We talked. And it was nice," I admitted. "Too nice." Emma went quiet for a beat. "What are you saying?" "I don't know," I sighed. It felt different, like the beginning of one of those cheating stories you read online. But nothing happened. It was just a vibe, a feeling. "That's dangerous," she said quietly. "Feelings have a way of turning into actions when you least expect it." I knew she was right, but I also knew I wasn't being honest with her or with myself. Something had happened, not physically, but emotionally. Something had shifted in me. I spent the rest of the day trying to bury those thoughts, but they clung to me like fog. Every object in the house reminded me of Jake. The wine glasses in the sink, the throw blanket where we sat, the faint echo of our laughter. That evening, just after dinner, my phone buzzed. A message from Jake. "Had a great time last night. Hope I didn't overstay my welcome." My heart skipped. I hesitated. Then, almost against my better judgment, I typed back, "Not at all." It was nice to have some company. A few minutes later, another message popped up. "Glad to hear that. Mind if I drop by again tomorrow? No pressure." This was it. The fork in the road. I could say no and draw the line. Or I could say yes and open a door I might never be able to close. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Tomorrow is fine. When Jake arrived the next evening, he brought takeout. We sat across the table, eating and talking, but everything was different now. There was weight in the air. Every glance lingered. Every laugh felt loaded. There was a magnetic pull between us, silent, dangerous, undeniable. I caught myself watching his lips when he spoke, wondering how they might feel against mine. My mind screamed at me to stop, but my body, my heart, they didn't want to listen. Somewhere between dinner and dessert, I whispered, "Jake, do you ever think about what it would be like if things were different? If we weren't tied to other people?" He froze, but not with surprise, with recognition. I think about that more than I should, he said, voice low. Guilt surged through me. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. Don't apologize, he said. I felt it too, but we can't. You and Alex. That matters. I know, I whispered. I love him. Jake nodded, pain flashing in his eyes. And I respect that. I do. But this is hard. We sat in silence, both knowing we were teetering on the edge of a cliff. Finally, he stood. I should go, before we make a mistake. I watched him leave, and the door closed on more than just the night. It closed on who I thought I was. But as the silence swallowed the house again, one truth echoed louder than all the rest. This wasn't just a visit. This was the beginning of my cheating story. And I had no idea how it would end.